Thank you. Can everyone see my presentation? I don't have it where I can see you, but I know you're there. I can feel your presence. And although I am an ordained minister, I promise not to hold you all evenly, and I will not take collection. So this evening, I'm presenting a topic that I was asked to present this time last year. And I've taken 2 years of research to do this through numerous people, numerous sources. And though I have 40 years in the industry, this was a topic that was very keen interest to me because it is so prevalent today, and there isn't any tactical addressing of it in the business side. So I decided to take the mantle up myself and to try to put into a presentation. It's a lot of data, but I'm going to try to make it user friendly. And that topic this evening is tactical misinformation and disinformation in your organization. And in organization, I'm not just talking about your business. I'm talking about your life, your family, your community, your city, your ecosystem. Again, I'm Stephen PULLUM. I have been doing cybersecurity since 1984. And so my background's been given. That's my LinkedIn right there. Please connect if you have any other questions at the end. So let's look at fake over fact. Now we're going to touch on a lot of tactical stuff, but I want to really focus on the cyber social and cyber psychological. So we're going to talk about the definitions of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. You don't hear about malinformation a lot. So we're going to use the acronym MDM. And again, we're going to look at the impact of the cyber social and the cyber psychological. And that is, there are people who are beginning college courses on cyber psychology, on the influences of the dangers of social media, the dangers of social media impacting populations. And this goes back a long time. If you think about it, about MDM, you think about the Greeks and the Trojan horse, you think about the good and the bad. And a lot of times we say it is because they're charismatic or great speakers or motivators, but they move populations, and sometimes the facts are not there, but we want to believe them. And so we're going to look at some of the methodologies of social and personal influence operations. There are frameworks in this. And then we're going to look at some of the historical allegories of similar effectiveness. And in that area, we're going to get into something called a useful idiot. And then we're going to talk about risk and risk management and some kind of prevention. So bear with me. You're going to enjoy this. I enjoyed making it. It's 2 years in the making. So it's not going to take that long to present, but it is 2 years in the making. All right. The first thing which I added tonight was, and I didn't know this, but in National Public Radio, a year ago this month, said that social media misinformation was furthering a worsening civil war in Ethiopia. Now, one of the former data scientists at Facebook told the members of a Senate hearing, U.S. Senate hearing, that Facebook bears some of the blame for the growing conflict in Ethiopia. Their algorithms were literally fanning ethnic violence. A year ago this month, this came out. So if you look at the impact, this is not a person now, this is algorithms manipulating your social thinking to the point that people are dying. Just an algorithm. And we're going to get into how to fight against that. So when I say organization, we're going to touch on business, we're going to touch again on psychosocial, and we're going to touch on cyber psychological. We're going to get into definitions. Misinformation is the unintentional mistakes, such as inaccurate photo captions, dates, stats, or translations, or when satire is taken seriously. Like a comedian says something and someone really, really gets upset and goes out and rebrands what they said out of context. Now, disinformation is fabricated or deliberately manipulated audiovisual, intentionally creating conspiracy theories or rumors. So this is where your little white lies come in. Whereas it is information, but you twisted it. This is where your half-truths come in. Malinformation is when you deliberately publicize private information, personal or corporate, that's against the public interest for revenge. You deliberately change the context, the date and the time of the genuine context. And we're going to move through all three of these from falseness to actually intent to harm. The three categories of information disorder. So now we've categorized this as information disorder. And to understand the complexity of this, we need a common language. So right now we're using the term fake news, but it hides important things in those two words. It hides distinctions and it denigrates journalism. Also, it's used too much. So if you have fake news, you never hear about true news. And this is what a disorder comes in, it's misleading. So you have the falseness, misinformation, the intent to harm, the malinformation, and right in the middle of that is the disinformation. So you had people up front hearing too much, and the people at the bottom not trusting anything. So in this cyber psychological field of MDM, there are some effects. There are colleges who are studying this. And so one of the effects is called the misinformation effect. And you're going to find this interesting. It is the way that if you hear something that's true, but you also hear something that's false more than you hear it's true, your memory is altered. In your memory, you will remember the false and not trust the true. And that's called a misinformation effect. So if I say this is an apple, and then somebody else says this is an orange 5 times, when you see that same fruit, the first thing you're going to think about is it's an orange, though you know it's an apple. The tainted truth effect, which closely relates to misinformation effect, is that it is well-intentioned, like fact checking, right? So I say this is an apple, someone says this is an orange, but because you have to go and fact check it, it's kind of a tainted truth. Like now you're going to sit there and say, okay, every time you see an apple, is it really an apple or an orange? And let me tell you an example I created. When someone says, did you see the boss has a new car? Rather than saying, did you see the new car driven by the boss? One implies the boss bought a car. The other one implies that he's just driving a new car. He didn't buy it. So disinformation plays to emotions, biases. It simplifies difficult topics. It allows the audience to feel as though they're exposing truths and offers identity. So when somebody's putting out disinformation, they get a high from it basically, because now they are the source of the information. So you make up something, and let me tell you where this is really prevalent in the old times is the water cooler rumor mill. Did you hear so-and-so and so? Did you hear this? Did you hear that from one person? The gossip. And half the time they took a little information and blew it up so that they become the sole source. And that is a psychological high for them. All right, so people have sat down and created frameworks, attack frameworks. The first one was is the adversarial misinformation, influence, tactics, and techniques, AMIT framework. Excuse me. Frameworks in MDM, again, we talked about the AMIT. AMIT evolved into what's called the Disinformation Analysis and Risk Management, the DISARM framework, developed by the DISARM Foundation. And it addresses 2 methodologies in cybersecurity paradigm. DISARM Red is like red teaming for incident behaviors, attacking against on the attack methodology, and DISARM Blue is for blue teaming. So they take this information and they divide it into a kill chain, and one is defensive kill chain, and the second basically is attack kill chain. But they're not the only ones out there. You have the Scotch framework, which is source, channel, objective, target, composition, and hook. It is a general purpose framework for operational analysis. And it started as a starting point for deeper study and decision making. For instance, disarm is basically tactical. I mean, it's tactical. But Scotch looks at the overall framework and see how you can characterize influence operations behaviorally, technically, operationally, politically, and commercial audiences. And then you have another one, research called the ADTAC Disinformation Inventory. And this is one that's used around the globe. This one is in Europe. I saw this was being used in Europe. And it is a global model for online subversion. It offers a model of techniques with a common overview of disinformation phenomena, broke down basically into techniques, countermeasures, predictions of future exploits, breaking down individual metrics. So let me put it in user-friendly terms. So the ADTAC takes an incident of misinformation, looks at the target, looks at the effect, look at the delivery, and then use that to predict the same kind of information on a different platform. We're going to see more about that here a little bit later. All right, can you still see the slides? Just checking. Okay, so what we have here is what's called, an institute was created called the Integrity Institute. And they created something called the Misinformation Amplification Factor, the math dashboard. And basically what this thing is, it sits there and it tracks, it takes an incident, it tracks its likes, its favorites, its retweets, shares and comments, replies and views, and the platform that it's on. It takes historical posts, the same as that particular post, and then it analyzes it into a factor. And this factor, it sits there and says, okay, if this kind of information comes out, the kind of population is going to hit. It's huge. It's huge. And out of the math dashboard, they came up with this thing called the mental diabetes spiral. And I found this very, very fascinating. It says, okay, so you get so much information all the time from all your platforms that your brain desensitizes the truth, right? So look at somebody that watches like CNN all the time. That only thing they see is CNN. And so at one point, your brain desensitizes to all the news is put at it. But if you turn off CNN, guess what? It's like they're on a drug. They have to have that news going all the time. And so they come from consuming too much information to the point that you actually cyber psychologically need to be in the know. And so you have the International Fact Checking Network by Pointer. It was launched in 2015, and it's a community of fact checkers around the world. And they check everything. So it's not just one company, it's a network of companies that's continuously checking facts. But the thing that was crucial was they started identifying that say, hey, people are getting so much information, overloading, that it is changing their psychology. Their psychology is changing. That means it's changing their environment. If their environment is changing, they're changing the communities and they're changing nations. Tactics. Now we're going to get to the tactical side for a little bit. So if you were a person nefariously wanting to shoot out some a lie, basically a lie, that you grew 6 toes, you do reconnaissance to see the target audience who would be like, hey, you know, who would really be interested in me growing 6 toes? You do it covertly, basically, anonymous. You research, you gather, and you profile. Then you take that data that you have, for instance, that have 6 toes, and you weaponize it. You create content, rumors and lies, outrages and conspiracies. Like, you know, the 6 toes humans are walking around. You seen one, you are one, and you outrage that the medical community is keeping it secret. You might include memes and images and audio and video, or you might deep fake There's a lot of deep fakes out there. I've seen some very, you really can't tell. And if you don't know what deep fakes are, it is artificial intelligence taking a person's face, but actually forming their lips to say words that they never said. So cyber psychological principles still apply. So you wrap rumors, perceptions, interpretations, and prejudices, movements, speech rhetoric, using outrage. And this is what happened in Ethiopia, using outrage, doubt, conspiracy, and humor. And then again, in Ethiopia, it was the algorithm, just like deepfake, artificial intelligence algorithms. Then the delivery, the platforms, we know those, either one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many. You know, how are you gonna get the information out to WhatsApp, Twitter, Tinder, Facebook, you know, do I have to say TikTok, you know, and Instagram. Then you will exploit that information for whatever purposes you need it for. Whether you like, hey, you feel good about it, or you're in the news with 6 toes until somebody proves you different. Of tactical MDM. Okay, so they're saying that fake news today is like a modern day tech suicide bomber in the world of communications. Whether fake letters from your CEO to alter a corporate strategy, or staging a car crash to imply vehicle faults. Fake news generates headlines and will continuously hurt company bottom lines, pushing stock prices down. So think a bank, just say someone is mad at a particular global bank and starts a rumor that they lost a significant amount of money in that bank, unrecoverable, and they start telling their friends, do not trust that bank. Eventually, you know, with enough social media focus, news focus, fake news, that bank will have repercussions. So fake news and social media items that are intentionally and verifiably false still manipulates people's perceptions of reality. And like we said previously, if I say I have an apple, and then I say I have an orange, and then I say orange enough, every time you see an apple, you will think about an orange. So now you can't trust what you know is an apple. And that way you can influence politics, and actually also used for advertising. So if you see a billboard of something enough, and that's what they do in politics, that's why they always put signs and pictures. If you see it enough in your mind, you think that is the proper thing or the negative thing. Whether you know what is going on with that billboard or the politician or not, because of the amount of times your brain sees that image. But it also becomes a method to stir up social conflict. Stories that are untrue and that are intentionally misleading readers that's called mistrust among people. Again, I'll refer back to Ethiopia. And it results in incivility, protests over imaginary events, or out and out violence and death. Going to the next slide. Reputation and brand damage. So MDM, one of the components of MDM is reputational damage. A reputation is defined as the beliefs or an opinion that are held about someone or something. You go to Kentucky Fried Chicken because you know KFC has 11 herbs and spices. And you know that chicken is different than you can fry at home. You know that's their reputation. But if the one time that someone goes to KFC and they come down with food poisoning, and that information gets out, whether it's true or not, they get interviewed in a hospital, whether they're faking or not, at that point, reputation is KFC at that particular location is damaged. Reputation, brand damage. So let me see, get back on track. Reputational damage. So with reputational damage, and we know what this is, in branding, folks that are branding and marketing, your reputation is everything in the sector. Depends upon what sector of business you're in, or at home, or in the community. You can lose, as a business, loss of customers, falling sales, for your attention. Some folks might want to come work for you. Financial loss and bankruptcy and liquidity. In 2022, there are more possible ways for a business to go under scrutiny than it's ever been before in history. And for starters, more and more people are getting their news online, with 80%, 86% of Americans reporting that they get their news on their smartphone, tablet, or computers. So we're a mobile society, and one false piece of information wrapped, encapsulated in virtually a true information, once revealed as false, makes you question the truth. And that's where the cyber social people come in with that. All right. Addressing reputational damage. There was a time when you stood behind a company because a company was invested in you, your family, and the community. There's still companies like that. But in the global, ever since, I would say, since COVID and the global society now that we're in now, you don't have the fun times of company picnics and company soccer games and football games and things sponsored by a company. And that was the buffer against reputational damage, especially in communities, especially in cities, because you built your brand based on the perceptions and the opinions of people. So when you get hit with an MDM attack, there's that same branding and bond that will buffer you if you build it. So you build your brand, your online presence proactively, with cohesion, customer loyalty, employee loyalty, and visibility. And a lot of times visibility doesn't just have to be online. If you are in a community, you want to, let's say Google, I'll give an example, let's say Google, right? People want to, quote unquote, work for Google because Google, they name you a Googler, you have all these different benefits at Google. They have picnics, they have conferences, everything Google, Google, Google. So Google brand, even if you did not work at the company, you see somebody with a Google shirt on, you know they work at Google and they have Google behind them. So that is one of the only real ways to fight against MDM, because you're in a PR crisis. Reputational damage is a PR crisis. So when you build a company, you make sure your company, or you're in a company, you make sure your company missions and values is something that you can stand behind, that your mission, that your values and your mission is based on a good reputation, on good customers, a good customer response. The data showed that 90% of shoppers, no matter where you are, what country, you tend to stay loyal to certain brands. You tend to stay loyal to certain milk, certain vegetables. You tend to stay loyal to certain brands. I mean, Nestle chocolate is Nestle chocolate. You tend to stay loyal to Nestle. If somebody come up with Hershey's, like, I don't know anything about Hershey's, I know Nestle. So if something happened to Nestle, they say, okay, several cases of Nestle came up with a virus. You say, okay, that's just those cases, but we know I've had Nestle all my life. That's how you buffer against reputational damage, and that information could be false because you weren't there. All right, so susceptibility to disinformation. Here's what we're going to get to. I hope I didn't skip a slide. Hold on a second. Okay, all right, susceptibility. Here's what we're going to start getting into the phrase called useful idiots. Who is susceptible? Well, technically, we all are. We all are human. We all have biases. We all have prejudices. And because of those biases and prejudices, we're all susceptible. But when you're doing tactical or adversarial or nefarious MDM, this is where you start doing your reconnaissance. And so audience will be particularly susceptible to disinformation that fits with their personal beliefs, attitudes, and worldviews. And the moment you change that, the moment you start putting that information in front of them, they become reliant on it. They don't want to hear the truth, no matter what, because the truth to them is false. No matter how much research you put into it, no matter how many fact checkers, it's false. And inoculation of that, and they will inoculate themselves from the attempt to correct what they're thinking. It actually can backfire. And a lot of times, you saying that this is false, it's proven to be false, actually makes them think it's even because you said it's false and you tried to prove it's false, that means it's true. That's crazy, but it happens. This information is consistent with audience worldviews if it fits into your beliefs, something you're very familiar with, easier to process, more coherent, more people around you are in that grouping, and a view that's coming from a trusted source. Corrections to different information that challenge your belief can be ineffective because it's not consistent with what else they believe. They don't know anything about you or how you got that process, how you got that data, and that's all suspect. And it's not supported by the people around them. So the economic cost in 2019 of fake news on the stock market, US, was $39 billion. The financial sector lost 17 billion. Reputational management, the branders, marketers lost 10 billion, and public health hospitals 9 billion. So this is $1 billion attack. But the stock market, now it's 2019, so that was a few years ago, is way more than that today. And that is why this needs to be addressed as a tactical issue, because you have that type of money involved. Now we're going to talk about the kill chain. There is the MDM kill chain. Okay, and so here's where the technicalities come in. So if you look at the kill chain, you have the threat actor going to do the reconnaissance, going to find the cracks, analyze the target, the environment, design execution plan. He's going to weaponize that data. He's going to weaponize whether he has to be a certain kind of person, be in a certain infrastructure. He's going to plant the seed of that lie. He's going to fertilize it with more data, posts and tweets and things of that nature. He's going to sit back and watch it grow. And he watches it grow because of somebody called the useful idiot. What a useful idiot is, and you see it under second order amplify, a useful idiot is somebody who's going to believe whatever comes at them. They don't want to come and verify anything for themselves. They just believe whatever comes at them. They just re-repeat. That's what they call a useful idiot. If I tell so-and-so something, I just know they're going to go back and tell it to somebody else because they're a gossip and they're not going to verify the information. And then if I sound authentic about what I'm saying, like with authority, yes, this really happened, then in turn, they will repeat that. Control. I manipulate everything before then because I'm sitting back and I'm watching how my data is going. So I might have to add more tweets or another post on Facebook or actually go to a news reporter. And then the effect, of course, is my objective. A target with compatibility, so when you're choosing MDM target, they're likely to accept an analytical or intuitive message that is compatible with their beliefs, and it just feels right. So if I say, okay, this apple and this orange, you like oranges more than apples, so what you have in your hand, that's not really an apple, it's an orange. You know it's an apple, but it feels right because you like oranges. So you will accept the fact that though you know it's an apple, it's possibly an orange. And then, so you go around telling folks that this red orange is this red orange, and you become a useful idiot. And once the target has that new information, like again, the useful idiot goes back because they feel empowered because they know something nobody else knows, they think. So one thing I just added this, September 6th came out by some psychiatrists. something called doom scrolling. And it's very, very fascinating. I never thought about this, and I had to throw it in. Doom scrolling is there are people who, this is again, it's a cyber psychological issue, who we used to call them worry warts, or hypochondriacs that really wasn't a hypochondriac. And so now you have those people we call doom scrollers who binge on news and social media about troubling things. They have to know every tragedy, every crisis, every disaster. And if they don't, and they're on a lot of different platforms, and if they don't, right, they become anxious and distressed and go into depression. Because what it is an adrenaline high for them. And they get burnt out, but they cannot stop. They cannot stop looking at bad things. And what's so funny about it, you don't hear about doom scrolling, you don't hear anybody positively searching for good things. You never hear about that. They're always on the bad side of news. They can tell you everything bad that's happening in the world, whether they know it's true or not, because they read it, they saw it, they look for it. And they spend hours and hours and hours on the computer or the phone, different kind of medias, and they just scroll through it. And so, for instance, they'll find a topic and they just go down a rabbit hole of it. Negative on it, they just search and search and search and search. Men are more likely than women. That's not saying a whole lot. That's not saying a whole lot. Younger folks are more likely than older folks. So young men, what it's saying is, are more likely to the doom scroll, and they're following or participating in politics more than anybody else. So what makes us want to do it as a psychological issue? Because we have the need to be a part. We have the need to be a part of something. One of the Maslow hierarchy of need is belonging. And so the cyber doom scrolling fulfills the need for them. So they know about pandemics and weather stuff, mass shootings, everything. And overdoing it for them routinely causes problems. People don't want to be around them because they say, all you talk about is this. I really don't want to talk about that. One study shows that news viewing becomes a problem when you get so absorbed in the content, you check it over and over and over again. For instance, you see something on CNN, you got to go check it over here in ABC, you go check it over here, and if you don't see it in all your areas that you normally get information from, then you have a problem with that and you can't sleep. You need confirmation. And that right there, if you see, is one person called the useful idiot, because they're going to say something whether they know it's factual or not. And they're in every kind of news media. All right. The deception information management. This is a busy slide. All right. So this is where businesses need to step up and protect themselves. And that's why I put DIM in there for it. We already have the frameworks. And this is how you actually get down to business. So DIM persuasion is done during lying, distortion, omission, or misdirection. And those are four key things to think about. Lying normally is not a good way of, anybody can really see a lie, right? But omissions, distortion, and misdirections tend to be more subtle. You can galvanize a population emphasizing the enemy atrocities. For instance, let's say that somewhere in the world, I'm not talking anything actual, hypothetical, there's a war, right? And you want to galvanize your country into sending a lot of money to support the war. So all the information coming out of that war is going to be horrible. It's going to be, you're not going to find too many positive stories of what's going on in that situation, whether it's real war or not. And so, and the way you would do that is by great atrocities. And so there's a lot of that has happened through all the wars we've had in the modern age, that misdirection. So with omissions, sometimes withholding information, it's one of those read between the lines. Did you see so and so and so? No, but you was there. I didn't see this happening. Sometimes not saying you didn't see something is actually saying you did see something. Distorting is presenting a statement deliberately misleading way to support your point. Yeah, I saw that, and had he not did so and so and so, it wouldn't happen in the first place. And misdirection is taking the information that's being seen or used and putting it somewhere else, knowing it's going to come back to the source. Now, this circle right here, we're going to talk about it just for very briefly. And this is the fake news creation circle. And I know it's a big slide. It's probably very difficult to see. I'm going to take one portion of it. Let's say the creator and the spreader, right? So that is the aggressor. So you will sit there and think to yourself, as a creator, do I want human or non-human, which is bots or AI, or do I want to use humans, which is newspapers or fake news websites? And I will sit there and look at the data I want to put out, right? And then go around the wheel to news content. It goes from left to right, clockwise. And then use this wheel to create, it's almost like a kill chain except a circle. And you can actually, if you was going to create false content and you really didn't know how to do it, this is a circle that shows you how to do it. It goes from creator to the content, to the social context, and to the target. Also including its risk analysis. And the reason I created the slide is so that in order to catch, there's always been a mantra, in order to catch a thief, you have to be like a thief. So if you know the methods that somebody's using for MDM, then you know how to reverse engineer those methods to protect your business or your environment. And so that's why I put this slide here, so that those who get access to this data, like I said, a lot of this information I've gotten over the last 2 years, and then verified it by looking at certain things on Twitter, or looking at certain things on Facebook. Now, I didn't create no fake content, but I knew a fake content and then researched it backwards. And I said, okay, this is a valid way of doing this. We all know how to create lies, but to weaponize it, to move a population, that is a threat vector that actually needs to be looked at in cybersecurity. Because again, I will refer back to Ethiopia. This wheel right here of fake news caused death. Whereas, so this is a weaponized, so this is a weapon we're looking at in this circle. This is a weapon we're looking at in the in the kill chain, in the MDM kill chain. Next, we have the same thing. Here's the kill chain, or the steps. I put it in a step kind of format, right? I see you guys didn't move yet. You're on the circle still. You're still in the circle. Why is that? Are you on the steps? Or are you on the circle? Okay, I guess you're on the steps. So this is still the cyber kill chain, except in a step methodology. You're going to reconnaissance your target. You're going to build your campaign infrastructure, your op. This cyber kill chain basically is also used for large scale nation states as well. So sophisticated threat actors, now we're talking threat actors, they prepare the environment for tailored diplomatic propaganda and official messaging. So you're going to seed that fake content, deliver it to multiple locations, and create the illusion that there are multiple sources. So you're going to also, after that, write the material, write the data, write the information, basically called information laundering. You lay the groundwork, the amplification. Amplify through journalists or social media. Control that amplification. Sometimes you might have to add a little bit more tweets or more Facebook or more TikTok videos of the fake information, and then get your desired effect. I have not tried to do this, but there are folks. I didn't put this data into the presentation, but there are people who do this, and they created they created a game called. I remember. I'll shoot it out later, where they sit there and they do it against AI, and they let AI repopulate that information, fake information, to see the results of it. But what I did do without sponsorship, wait for it, I can see you guys and wait for it to change. It's about a minute and about a 30-second delay, but you're still on the steps. I went to the next slide. Okay, so now you're still on the steps. So what I did find, and you guys, this is not an endorsement of no kind, but there are, there you go. There are entities that do this for corporate infrastructure. And one of them is the SocialNet company, and they use, it's one of SocialNet, and the company is Shadow Dragon. And what they do is they map out, let's say you have a business and you now decide to be proactively attack MDM against your company or your institution or your bank or whatever, the government. So they will absorb all of your social, they will go and absorb all social content coming about your entity. Then they will map out online connections between who they're connected to outside of who they're connected to outside of the content that you're producing. All right, then they will correlate that data. They look at the network associated connections between the bad actors and the stuff coming into you, and then they'll put geographic mapping. I've seen it in action. I don't know how they did that. And I said it was worth knowing there are people out there trying to address MDM. And so this is not an endorsement. There are other companies, but I just wanted you all to know that it just is not the wild, wild west out there. There are people trying to address this in a manner that is tactical, that is from the framework, which is AMIT and Disarm and Scotch, to actual implementation. And some of those frameworks are EU frameworks like Scotch. And this company here absorbs a lot of data. You say hire them and say like Bank of Stephen, and then they'll go out and scour everything on all the social networks that reference Bank of Stephen. And then whoever is referencing Bank of Stephen, they're looking at who they're also referencing. It is just AI on steroids. And so if you, so some companies, don't worry about reputational damage, but there are some entities that reputational damage will sink them. A bank. So I don't know their customer list, but this is pretty big. So I know there's a lot of information, it's parsed out. There is still a lot more information that it's ever evolving, because like I said, like you saw the one September slide, it's ever evolving because there are a lot of people trying to jump into the field because I can say as a U.S. citizen, because of elections. Elections is a big concern of how to block because of what Facebook did in the 2020 elections. So now there's a concern that all these ads that you're getting are maybe influencing you, and AI is doing that. So I'm going to conclude right now. I would like to open the floor to questions. Thank you for having me.